Hey, welcome back to Spiritual Modalities for Spiritual Life. Jeannie Lynch coming to you today, and so excited to offer another beautiful spiritual modality. Today we're talking about the Akashic Records. It's been called the Book of Life, the Library of our Soul, a place and a space where absolutely everything about our soul is stored for information. So let's think about that for a second. How cool would it be if you could walk into a library, check out a book, your own record of every experience and every occurrence that's ever happened in your life, from the past to present, and guess what, even to future. How cool would it be if we could access the records for ourselves and guess what, get in there and change what we needed to so that we could be the best expression moving forward. Does that sound intriguing? That's the work of the Akashic Records. It's coming up next. I'm going to do a beautiful interview with Markey Read, and you'll be diving in and learning how to access the records for yourself. Stay watching. That interview, that topic, is up next. Hey, thanks for staying clicked in and showing interest in the beautiful Akashic Records. And I will say, I have been immersed in this work, doing a whole playlist on my YouTube channel about the intuitive side, teaching people how to connect to this. What is this? We can call it the Akashic Records, right? Today, that's what we're going to dive into, and that's the word we're going to use. But I will truly set this up and say it can be higher self, it can be inner voice, it could be consciousness, you could call it the veil, you could call it God. Okay, we are eternal. We are energy. Everything is energy. So it makes sense, right? This is where you kind of get to wrap your mind around this, that if you've lived 1,000 lives and here you are incarnated in this soul, and yes, you chose this, whatever you do today is impacting today, but you also have that ability to truly change what will be. And I just love the energy of that. And imagine and stay open to the possibility that if you heal this today for future self, that you're also healing your past, that energy line is continuous. That's what I want you to keep an open mind to. And we'll break it down, we'll do our best to explain it, and we'll continue this conversation. We're going to be looking at this for the following month. Next up, I'm going to read you a beautiful bio from Markey Read, and these are the conversations we'll be diving in today as we uncover the Akashic Records for ourselves. So stay watching. That interview is up next. A little bit about Markey before she comes on. Markey Read is an intuitive coach and consultant. She supports people by helping them identify their core purpose and taking practical action steps towards actualizing it. She's been coaching solopreneurs, career explorers, business leaders, and other seekers for nearly 30 years. She uses a combination of her own intuition and common sense approaches. Markey truly does love mixing the mystical and the magical when clients are open to it. She's trained in a variety of topics, such as Myers-Briggs, emotional intelligence coaching, the Akashic Records, tarot, dowsing, and even numerology-based life planning for those who want to go beyond the ordinary. Markey has lived in Vermont since 1990, where she and her husband have created a vibrant homestead and consulting businesses together. Without further ado, let me introduce you to Markey Read. Welcome, Markey. Thank you, Markey, for taking time out of your busy professional life to talk about this fun modality, the Akashic. We're going to talk about how we pronounce that right away out of the gate with us today. So welcome, Markey. I've already introduced you. I told them a little bit about these records and how to access them. And today we're just looking to get a taste and get a touch from your experience. So welcome, Markey.
Thanks so much. It's really a pleasure. And but we do pronounce it slightly differently. I pronounce it Akashic Records. It's the only way I've ever heard it pronounced, and I don't think there's a right or wrong, but I'll be saying Akashic.
Okay, let's do it. So tell us a little bit about this modality. When I have to tell you too, I asked in the beginning of class what was everybody most interested in learning, 90% of the class said this modality. So it's pretty cool. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into this modality and how you use it in your business, or what can you tell us about these records?
That's great. So the Akashic Records are really fascinating. I've tried all kinds of different things as a participant. I've been trained in a few different modalities also. And what I found, well, first of all, I met Christy Johnson, who's the person who introduced me to this, and I first started getting my records read by her, and then she trained me in the same tradition that Linda Howe uses. So Christy's the certified instructor for Linda Howe. And what I found about it that I liked, actually, is there's really like no drama. It's pretty straightforward. It's the experience of having a records reading is very, very easy and pleasant and sort of lovely. It's a conversation. And also the amazing thing is the experience of reading the records is really profound. When I shifted, I still get my records read regularly by Christy. She and I talk pretty often. But when I started being able to look into the records myself, for myself as well as other people, I just found this this incredible peace and expansiveness, and it was really, really lovely. And one of the things that I joke about with Christy all the time is that, it's way better than any therapy I ever went through. And there's a time and a place for therapy, and I really am a great advocate of that. But there's also a place where you kind of talked it out enough. Yeah. And there's something else needs to happen, or some other energy needs to come in. And what I found with the Akashic Records is it brought me that other dimension that I never quite felt like the therapy sort of brought me to.
Okay. So maybe you can explain, in the layup to this, I kind of said it as a space or a place, and we can call it many different things, I think you heard me say. So in your perspective, how do you define the Akashic Records?
Well, you explained it really well, actually. It's really the record of what has been, what is, and what will be. It doesn't really have a predictive quality, as in this will happen, but it's based, just like any kind of a divination, or any kind of a tool we use for divination, it's based on what's happening right now in this moment. Okay. And so just as soon as we end this moment, things change. And that's why sometimes I think that a lot of divination practices get a bad rap, because people think, oh, you predicted this and it didn't happen, or why didn't you predict that? It's like, well, because it's not prediction in the way that we think of it. It's based on the exact circumstances in the moment that it's said or experienced.
I love that.
And then as soon as it's over, those experiences change.
So when you first got involved with this, with Christy reading your records and stuff, did you go back and find out past lives and stuff to kind of, and then did you figure out and make the connection of how that impacted your life today?
Yeah, so at first, I have to say that I think there's some levels to people getting their records read. Okay. First of all, there are people people I've worked with, as well as I know the folks who participated with Christy's work, is that you just sort of want, who am I and what's it all about, which is great. There's a lot of rich information in there. And you're not going to get everything about who you are in an hour, because there's a lot more to you. Yes. Then there's I know for myself, there was this fascination with the past lives, so what about this and what about that? And I was going through a lot of changes in my body. So I had various places that were in pain or chronically giving me difficulty. And I was curious about, is this old pain? Is this like generational, or is this ancient pain? Is this not the pain of this life?
Yes.
And we would find all kinds of things. Weird things like I have like a piercing, pinching pain in my right shoulder. And there was some lifetime where, I was stabbed with an arrow, So there's some really interesting connections that are direct and like, oh, there's a direct connection. It also let me release it. Oh, that's not this lifetime. That's not about today. I'm gonna let that one go.
Okay.
Now at the same time, of course, I was also, I get regular body work and other things. So I've been working out a lot of things. I've been changing a lot of other things in my life. So it's not as though as soon as you discover like, oh, that was an ancient, it's gone.
Right.
You still need to work in this body, in this life.
Yeah, I love that. So let's talk about that, because I find in my own spiritual readings that if I go to past lives through the records to look at things, there is absolutely a connection. So especially if there's a relationship issue and stuff, it's remanifesting, or it's showing up in this life to finish the work. So I love the awareness that it might not be, a pain that you had and therefore you shouldn't be holding on to it, but was the pain because of betrayal? You know what I mean? And then you dive deeper into what are you still carrying about that. So that's pretty cool.
Right. So that's interesting, that the what are you still carrying piece was the deeper work, besides just like, oh, that's interesting that came from that life and that life and that life. And you're like, so wait a minute, so what about that? And what do I do with it now? And how is this useful? Why is this coming up now?
There you go.
What can I do with it? How can I move that energy? How can I use that energy in my everyday life? And I've been getting my records read for, I don't know, I think since I first met Christy, at least 7 or 8 years. And I learned to read the records about 4 or 5 years ago.
Let's go right there then, because I think my group's going to be interested in finding out, how does someone learn how to do this modality, right? Or how you got trained. So Linda Howell has a book and she has certification and stuff. So can someone be certified? Obviously, clearly they can. And so take us through that. What was that?
So so technically, you can actually, read Linda's book and learn how to read the records. I mean, really, you can. I wanted more hands-on. So because I had experience of having participated in getting my records read, I knew what it was like on the participant side. And so Christy held a workshop. It was a weekend-long workshop, and I myself and maybe another 8 people came. And she brought us through the paces of, this is what the Akashic Records are, and this is how you use it, and then there's a, how you technically read it is you get a prayer. There's a prayer that you say, and there's some parts of the prayer that you say out loud, and some that you say in silence. And unless you've read the book or gone through a training, you wouldn't really know that the person reading your records is doing that. And it's kind of it opens the door. Okay, so it opens the door, and then once the door is open, the person whose records that you've opened, including my own, I could go in and read my own, can ask questions. And what's fascinating about it is it's not as though some booming voice comes in and says, blah, 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 you will do this, or this happened to you. It's more, there's a lot of images, there's colors, sometimes there's just like a flash of a knowing, there's stuff that goes on, and it's different for each person that reads the records. So some people are much more visual than others. Some people hear more than others. I see a lot of things. I'm very visual. And sometimes I see things that and this is the amazing thing, they don't make any sense at all to the person who's it. Like, I don't know what it means. My job is to tell you what I'm seeing and experience it.
I love that. So, Marky, you and I worked together back in your career coaching, and are you still doing all that too? And have you incorporated, I saw in your intro, the mystical and the magical for people who are open to it. Is this part of your work that you're really enjoying? Are you looking to do more of that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have always used something a bit mystical and magical with clients, and some clients are more interested than others. And by that, I mean that I use my intuition pretty heavily. And so, I sometimes, if I'm having some difficulty or I'm feeling challenged with a client, my individual clients, I might go into the records that morning that I'm going to see them and say, what will be useful for me?
Got it.
What will be helpful? How can I support this client in this time of transition? And one of the most profound things I ever experienced when I did that was, I had this image of a person hanging on a wall just by their fingers.
Okay.
And then this gentleman came in, and I hadn't necessarily said anything about the Akashic Records. I just said, I have this idea about that you're hanging on on the edge of a cliff. And he said, oh my God, he said, that's been exactly my feeling lately. And he went on to this whole thing about his experience of feeling like he is just barely holding on to the edge. And it was so wonderful that I thought, what a strange image to have received from him, because it didn't make sense with anything we had talked about before. And then there it was.
I like that point too, because I think when you're, when you're getting information, you're typically getting information for them, right? Because that's how you're working with them. And whoever's working with you, however you activate that information, it's in their language, not necessarily yours. So
exactly,
the fact that he was feeling that way and you were perceiving it and seeing it that way supported that intention. Oh, I just
and the other way I use it is there are clients that I work with who, because of whatever we've talked about, something they might have shared about themselves, I know that they'd be open to it. And I say, if you're interested in our next session, we can do a little deeper work with this, and I'll be more what I'll call overt about it.
Yeah.
And so, and the people that I have mentioned it to are always very thrilled.
To maybe, do you have a good success story? I mean, you just shared the gentleman on the wall and how you were able to see that for him, how he was feeling.
A friend of mine who's an astrologer, she was really struggling with some directions she wanted to take her business. And we did a whole bunch of reading about that. We did a couple of different sessions. And it gave her this incredible clarity about her business plan.
I love that.
All of a sudden, stuff started to click for her, so quite a bit of it, there's ideas that we have, but our own monkey mind gets in the way. We doubt, or we don't have people around us that support us. There's a lot of things that get in the way of us acting on our own instincts. And sometimes something like the Akashic Records can just open that and say, yes, it's okay. And other times it gives you something very direct and like, this is what you need to do, and I've had that experience myself also.
Love that. Hey, can people work with you over the phone, or does it have to be in person?
It can be over the phone, it can be over Skype or Zoom. In fact, I work with folks remotely quite a bit, so it's a lot of fun.
Don't you find too, I find people think, how can you do that work over the phone? And it's funny because they don't realize those records are just so available no matter where you are. And
it's just energy.
You can heal through remotely and all that. So I love that awareness.
Right. I want to say one other interesting thing. For many years ago, I learned how to dowse, and I use dowsing all the time. And I'm a level 2 Reiki practitioner also. And when in learning about the Akashic Records, what I discovered is that the same energy that you tap into a dowser or as a Reiki practitioner is the exact same energy with the Akashic Records, except the Akashic Records is really the source as opposed to sort of like tapping into it.
Got it. And you know what? My class knows exactly what that is because we've learned a lot of those modalities as we've been through this process. So I love that. I'm thinking about the shift too, and I know this is off my questions that I gave you, but you opened up that door for me. Talking about people being open to this, aren't you finding that as we healers or whatever we are, practitioners, put ourselves out there a little bit more, that there's more people that are open to it than not?
Yeah.
Aren't you finding that?
A lot more people are open to it, but because, we have really villainized in our culture, we villainize anything that, that isn't mainstream, sort of Protestant, Catholic, mainstream kind of religious sort of things, that somehow, because all of those traditions did such a good job of making it look like all of the other stuff was wrong and bad and evil and dark. It's just great sadness for me, actually, because I wasn't raised in a particularly strict religious environment. And so I was open to a lot of things, even as a very young person. And, but I always felt like I had to hide it. I always felt like I had to not tell people really who I am. And, of course, getting a little older makes you like, yeah, what the hell, I'm just going to say who I am. But the other piece is that we're in a really interesting shifting time right now.
You were just setting up another video that I have coming out in a couple months about this. And it's about us being practitioners, not talking it down or taking it away from it and saying, oh, you think I'm crazy, or, if you're open to it. And it's really stepping into that, bringing it back into mainstream, because it is, and I was brought up in that Catholic thing that you're talking about, and I'll be Catholic for the rest of my life, but I'm not in fear of it. And, it's not against my religion to be helping people through these modalities, right? So I love that. So, hey, Marky, before we, kind of wrap up or getting people talking, I want to make sure we pay attention to the fact that you mentioned tarot and dowsing and all these other things. So let's say someone wants to work with you because there's this opportunity to do that. Take us through what the normal step is for that for you. Does someone reach out to you on email, or take me through that? So if there is someone in my group who would like to learn more and have a reading, what could we do to connect?
You can certainly reach out to me at email. It's Marky, MARKEY, at MRG, as in Markey Read Group, MRGRP.
Okay.
-us.com.
Got it.
And I'd be glad to set up a time that works for you. I do evening times as well as daytime during the day, depending on the day. And it's pretty straightforward. We just set up a time, and if it's somebody who's not in Vermont, then we would set up a time to be able to do the remote access. So when I do a reading with someone, I ask them to set aside about an hour and 15 minutes so that we can talk a little bit before going into it, then we do the record reading, and maybe we can process a little bit afterwards.
Awesome. Do you find people come to you once and come back, or do you find that one and done, or do they typically like to work with you?
It's different for different people. I've had people who have come back several times, and they really enjoy like myself, when I talk to Christy once a month, and I use it as a way to sort out things and think through things. And so I have a few people who come to me regularly for that. And then most of the folks who come, they come once or twice, similar to any other kind of, like you get your chart read and you're like, oh, I got that done. So that's okay with me. I would rather someone come once or twice and get some value, and they don't feel like they have to come every single month.
Got it.
But if you wanted to do longer extended work, I really love that also.
That's cool. So that's a good segue too. I have a practitioner that I work with. She does human design, but she also does numerology, like you do numerology.
Yeah.
So when someone's going to work with you, do you ask them, would you like a numerology chart read also, or is that part of that kind of intro, or is it just the Akashic Records that they contact you for?
Well, it really depends on the person, right? So, I've been in business for a long time, so most people don't know me through this particular avenue. Most people know me as this, woman who works in the career and professional world. And so some folks who know about me come to or get referred to me for the Akashic Records. I'd say I'm probably a little bit more of a covert Akashic Record reader than most folks. But I'm looking to go more into that, actually, because I've been enjoying the work I do, and I think it enhances the background I have with folks in terms of what I can really help people move forward in.
Yeah. I love this for you. I love this as an addition to what you already do. As you know, I've worked with you in your career aspect, and I can tout you for that. You are phenomenal. So I totally get this connection for you and why it would be so successful. So thank you for that. So before we wrap up, have I forgotten anything that when you were thinking about me asking to do this today, you wanted to make sure you said about the records? Is there anything that I'm missing, just to give me a taste?
I think what I'd add is that, it's something that's in all of the various modalities that I have participated with lots and lots and lots, which have all given me value. To me, it has been the most straightforward, direct modality that I've ever experienced myself. And because, in some ways, you don't need it's kind of a weird thing. You don't need a lot of training for it.
Yeah.
Like astrology, I love astrology and I'm fascinated by it. But there's a lot of complexity to astrology.
Yes, there is.
And even every time I get a reading, I find incredible value. But I'm not always sure what it all means. Like they'll say, oh, your moon is in this, and you're this degree. And it means stuff, but I lose it.
Yeah, good point.
And any kind of, and I use the Myers-Briggs, right? So, and that has some complexity to it too. So I know I fish around and swim around in that language, and I know people leave thinking, okay, I don't remember all of that.
Yeah, good point.
And the Akashic Records is just really straightforward because there isn't really anything between you and the information. It's just the information.
Yeah. Oh, that you could end that. That is perfect for really sealing that up and explaining it too. I love that. So I think we're ready to move into our rapid fire. If you Are you ready? The fun part, right? Okay, so really quick, one word questions, no long answers. What is your favorite movie?
My Cousin Vinny.
Oh, I love that. If you're going to change the world today, the world needs what in order to be changed?
You know, people really need to be telling the truth about who they are, and then have the courage to act on it. You know, to get out there and act on it.
If we all have pet peeves, what is yours? One.
My pet peeve is when I see really powerful people hiding their power.
I love that. And then personal quality, something about yourself that you absolutely love.
I actually really like my voice.
I like your voice too. We'll see how it translates on this video.
And then the last question, what are you doing? Thank you, Marky, for your time today, by the way. What are you doing when you're totally experiencing joy?
I'm in my garden.
Let's just flash a picture of you in your garden. I love it.
And you haven't seen the garden that I've built lately. I've built a whole new garden. It's really quite extraordinary.
I think you might have to send me a picture and we'll edit
I'll
video
have to
with
send you
that.
a picture, yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today and opening up the door to the Akashic Records for us. See that? I've been corrected. And I do appreciate your time. I know how valuable it is.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. It was really lovely to be speaking with you today.
We'll see you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now.